In a world that constantly tests our patience, our dreams, and our very sense of who we are, where the days bleed into one another in a blur of obligations, worries, and distractions, the ancient voice of Stoicism calls out to us, quietly but firmly, offering not just a way to survive, but a way to truly live, to fix ourselves from the inside out and rebuild a life grounded in strength, purpose, and unshakable inner peace. And so, as you stand at the crossroads of frustration and transformation, the first step is to understand that the true battlefield is within, that the wars we fight are not with the external world, but with our own perceptions, expectations, and fears, and that victory is not found in controlling others or circumstances, but in mastering ourselves. For as the Stoics teach, it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And so begins the greatest journey you will ever undertake, the journey inward, the slow, painful, beautiful reconstruction of your mind and spirit. It starts with radical responsibility, the uncompromising recognition that you are responsible for your choices, your emotions, your reactions. That blame is a tempting but useless distraction, and that true power is reclaimed the moment you stop waiting for the world to fix itself and start fixing your own thinking, your own habits, your own inner dialogue. And from this moment of ownership, you begin to see that suffering is not an enemy to be feared, but a mentor to be welcomed, a brutal but honest teacher showing you where you are still weak, still attached, still expecting life to conform to your desires instead of adapting your desires to reality. For the Stoic is not one who seeks a life without pain, but one who learns to transcend pain, to see it clearly, feel it fully, and yet not be owned by it. And this demands a daily practice of mindfulness, of observing the turbulence of your mind without getting swept away, of noticing your anger, your anxiety, your longing, and saying quietly, "This is not me. This is just a passing thought." And like a seasoned sailor who navigates stormy seas not by fighting the waves, but by understanding the wind and adjusting the sails, you begin to move through life not as a victim of fate, but as an artist of your destiny, sculpting your soul moment by moment with the tools of discipline, patience, and acceptance. This transformation requires setting goals not based on external rewards, but on internal growth. Asking not, how can I win more approval, more wealth, more comfort, but rather, how can I become wiser, braver, kinder? For as the Stoics remind us, true success is living in accordance with virtue, and virtue is not a grand, distant ideal, but a daily practice. A choice made 1,000 times a day to act with courage instead of cowardice, to speak with honesty instead of deceit, to show compassion instead of indifference, and to hold yourself to your highest standards even when no one else is watching, especially when no one else is watching. For character is what you are when the world is not looking. And as you move deeper into this practice, you begin to reframe every obstacle not as a curse, but as a gift, every setback not as punishment, but as opportunity. For in every frustration lies a lesson, in every failure a doorway to deeper resilience, and in every loss a reminder that nothing truly yours can ever be taken away, that what is truly yours, your values, your choices, your soul, remains forever within your control. This reframing is not passive resignation, but active transformation, a conscious decision to meet life on its terms, and yet to shape those terms through the strength of your response. And so you train yourself, day by day, thought by thought, to greet difficulties with the calm of a seasoned warrior, to meet insults with unshakable dignity, to face uncertainty with quiet confidence, and to hold yourself to the same standards whether you are celebrated or forgotten, whether you are riding the heights of success or walking through the valleys of despair. For true Stoicism is not a shield against life's blows, but a call to endure them with grace, to learn from them with humility, and to rise from them with renewed strength. And in doing so, you begin to fix yourself not by erasing your flaws, but by understanding them, not by pretending to be invincible, but by learning to be unbreakable, not by denying pain, but by integrating it into the architecture of your soul, building within yourself a temple that no external storm can destroy, a sanctuary where peace is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of wisdom, where happiness is not the fleeting thrill of success, but the steady, deep-rooted satisfaction of living well, regardless of what fate may bring. And as this new foundation is laid, you notice that your relationships change, not because others change, but because you no longer seek from them what you have found within yourself. And so you bring to every interaction not neediness but wholeness, not desperation but generosity, not fear but love, and love, real love, grounded in self-respect and mutual respect, not the shallow love that clings and demands, but the deep love that gives and endures. And your work, too, is transformed, for you no longer labor for the hollow trophies of recognition, but for the intrinsic joy of excellence, of bringing your best to every task, however small, however thankless, knowing that the reward is in the doing itself, and that no act of true excellence is ever wasted, for it shapes who you are, and who you are is the only legacy that truly matters. And your sense of time shifts as well, for you understand now, deeply, that each day is a precious, unrepeatable gift, that each sunrise is a blank page on which you have the power to write a story of courage, compassion, and mastery. And so you waste less time in idle regrets about the past or anxious fantasies about the future, and you pour more of your energy into the sacred now, the only arena where life truly happens, the only place where change is possible, where growth is real, and where happiness is found. And as you live this way, the changes accumulate slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, like the patient erosion that carves mountains into masterpieces. But over time, unmistakably, you become someone different, someone stronger, wiser, freer, not because life became easier, but because you became greater than your circumstances, because you learned to fix the only thing that was ever yours to fix, yourself. And in doing so, you unlock the deepest power known to humanity, the power to live with integrity no matter what storms rage around you, to stand tall in a world that so often bows to fear, to move forward with grace when others are paralyzed by bitterness, and to find peace not in the ever-shifting sands of fortune, but in the solid ground of your own soul. And this is the ultimate guide to fixing yourself and your life. Not a list of hacks or shortcuts, not a magic formula to avoid pain or guarantee success, but a daily, deliberate choice to live by the principles of Stoic philosophy, to see clearly, to act rightly, to endure bravely, and to love fate itself, not as a cruel master, but as a wise teacher, leading you, step by step, trial by trial, toward the best version of yourself, toward a life not free from struggle, but full of meaning, not free from loss, but rich in gratitude, not free from death, but bursting with the vibrant, fierce joy of truly living. And as the long journey winds to its unseen destination, as the silent footsteps of days, choices, and transformations accumulate into the living sculpture of who you have become, you begin to realize that fixing yourself was never about becoming perfect, never about arriving at some final flawless state, but about becoming real, raw, and awake to life in its fullest, most brutal, and most beautiful forms. You stand now on the summit of your own making, breathing the thin, rare air of true freedom, and looking back over the broken roads, the storms weathered, the countless small victories earned in the privacy of your own heart, you see that every scar has been necessary, every loss essential, every fall a lesson written in the language of eternity across the bones of your existence. And the wisdom of the Stoics echoes now not as distant, ancient words, but as the blood running through your veins, the steady beat of your heart, the unbreakable steel of your mind. You understand, now, deeply and without illusions, that life will never cease to test you, that pain will return, that failures will come, that death waits for all things, and yet you fear none of it, for you have forged within yourself something that cannot be touched by fortune's wild swings, something that loss cannot erode, something that death itself will only reveal more clearly, the indestructible dignity of a soul that has chosen, again and again, to stand tall when it would have been easier to fall, to act with virtue when it would have been simpler to yield to vice, to believe in meaning when it would have been fashionable to believe in nothing. And in this steadfastness, this stubborn, radiant commitment to live rightly no matter the cost. You have found what so many spend their lives chasing but never grasp. True peace. The peace that comes not from comfort or certainty, but from alignment with the deepest truths of existence. You see now that the entire world is a great tide, ceaselessly, rising and falling, creating and destroying. And you are not here to stop it, not here to control it, but to flow with it in strength and grace, to surf the chaos with skill and serenity. And as you surrender to the dance of fate, you find that surrender does not mean defeat, but supreme power. For the one who accepts all outcomes has nothing left to fear, and the one who loves fate has already won, no matter the external result. The mind that embraces Amor Fati, love of fate, is the mind that turns every blow into a blessing, every setback into a stepping stone, and every ending into a beginning. And so you live not clinging to what must change, not weeping over what must end, but celebrating the brief, fierce brilliance of all things, seeing in every moment a miracle, in every encounter a chance for compassion, in every trial a canvas upon which to paint your courage. You live now not waiting for life to be easy, but reveling in the fact that it is hard, because hardness shapes you, tests you, sharpens you into something luminous and indestructible, and you walk through the world like a hidden king, a silent queen, carrying no banners, seeking no applause, answering to no one but the highest in yourself. And this quiet sovereignty is the greatest treasure a human being can possess. You become a lighthouse, standing unshaken as the storms crash around you, a hearthfire burning steadily even as the winds howl, a mountain patient and unyielding against the slow erosion of time. And those who meet you sense something rare, something ancient, something that cannot be bought, imitated, or stolen. A presence forged in the deepest fires, a soul tempered like the finest steel, a spirit that has mastered the only true art there is, the art of living. And so, as the final lines of this journey are written not in words, but in the choices you will make tomorrow, and the next day, and every day after, you carry forward the sacred duty to yourself and the world to live not by accident, but by design, not by fear, but by love, not by drifting, but by steering your life with hands steady on the wheel and eyes clear on the horizon, knowing that you will falter again, knowing that doubt will return, knowing that weakness will whisper at the edges of your mind, but armed now with the wisdom that weakness is not a flaw, but a forge, that doubt is not an enemy, but a mirror, that falling is not failure, but part of the dance, and rising again is the only commandment worth obeying. And as the sun sets and rises, as the tides of fortune ebb and flow, you move forward with quiet pride, breathing the air of freedom that only those who have battled themselves can breathe, walking the narrow, luminous path that only those who have faced their inner darkness can walk, holding the torch of Stoic wisdom not as a relic, but as a living flame, lighting the way not just for yourself, but for all who will come after you, whispering through your example the timeless truth that, no matter how broken you have been, no matter how lost you have felt, no matter how much pain you carried, you have always had within you the power to rebuild, to reclaim, to rise, and to live. Not merely exist, but live fiercely, wisely, and beautifully, for this is the ultimate guide to fixing yourself and your life, not in theory but in flesh and blood, not in fantasy but in reality. And you are the living proof that it can be done, that it must be done, that it is the most worthy thing you will ever do. And as you walk onward into the great unknown, into the fierce beauty of your own unfolding story, you do so with a heart unburdened by regret, a mind sharpened by truth, and a soul ablaze with the quiet, unstoppable fire of one who has finally, truly, profoundly learned to live.